Welcome back to the Operation Freedom YouTube channel. What we do here is shine the light of truth on the deep state. They hate that. We do it figuratively with our presentations. We do it literally with our sponsor's product, PatriotLegacy.com. PatriotLegacy.com, featured product of theirs, the Patriot Beacon. 6 overall lighting functions. In addition, solar powered, don't need batteries. You can charge your other devices like your phone from it. In addition, you got a compass, you got a window breaking hammer, and you got a seatbelt cutter. Plus, if those deep state dweebs get just a little bit too close to you, blast them with this. They're gone. Go to patrioticlegacy.com, patrioticlegacy.com. Get yourself, your kids, your grandkids, your car. Can carry it with you anytime. patrioticlegacy.com, the Patriot Beacon. Hi, I'm Dr. Dave Janda. Welcome back to the Operation Freedom platform. We have a very special presentation to you, courtesy of our subscribers at davejanda.com. As you know, we have this YouTube channel. We have the radio show, which is free. You can listen by streaming it at davejanda.com every Sunday from 2 to 5 Eastern. And we also have the davejanda.com platform, the free, the public side, but where we do the extra shows, the extra research, the extra analysis, the extra guests, is on the subscription platform. I believe one, if not the biggest bang for the buck in all the internet, $9 a month. Our subscribers asked that I bring this interview forward to you from the subscription service that we recently did with 2 national heroes, icons, true, real whistleblowers, as opposed to this gossip blower or gossip blowers that we hear about from the deep state and their Ukraine hoax issues. Bill Binney and Kirk Wiebe are true, real whistleblowers. And we discussed that in this interview about what it is to be a whistleblower and the sacrifices made on behalf of our country and every American's freedoms and liberties. Bill Binney and Kirk Wiebe in 2001 left their high-level positions, technical director positions of the NSA. Can't get much higher than that. Left the NSA in 2001 because of the abuse that was occurring at the NSA of American citizens and the abuse of American citizens' rights, in particular their Fourth Amendment rights. Bill and Kirk were 2 of the first to come forward and say, look, the NSA platforms are being abused and illegal surveillance is occurring of American citizens. Their phone calls, their emails, their financial transactions, their internet activity. They were ostracized. They were persecuted. Robert Mueller, who was then director of the FBI, sent teams of FBI agents into their homes with guns drawn on Bill, on Kirk, on their wives, on their kids. That's the deep state. You see, you can tell a real whistleblower from a gossip blower by how the government reacts to these folks coming forward. There's the reaction that I just spoke about that Bill and Kirk had, and then there's the reaction of this gossip blower or gossip blowers as it relates to Ukraine, who are embraced by the bought-off lamestream fake media, embraced by government bureaucrats, deep state puppets. Completely different. Bill and Kirk dissect the issues with gossip blowers in this piece, and they also dissect the coup. Bill and Kirk have led a team that blew apart the entire Russia collusion hoax by their analysis of the fact that those DNC server or servers were not hacked, that in fact it was an internal download and then a leak to WikiLeaks, who ultimately published that information. We discuss a number of things, as I mentioned in this interview. We discuss the coup. We discuss the fake Russian hack, the fake Russian collusion hoax, the fake Ukrainian hoax. We discuss, as I mentioned, whistleblowers versus gossip blowers. And then we talk about other forms of illegal surveillance. And we've touched on this before, more than touched. But we spoke about not just the abuse with the NSA and 702s, because deep state wants you just to focus on that and avoid what they were really doing to violate millions of Americans' rights, and that is with the use of parallel platforms. Illegal surveillance platforms that were run by NSA, CIA, FBI. And what made these parallel platforms even more sinister than the abuse on the NSA platform, which was bad enough, was that these parallel platforms don't have reporting systems built into them so that these government criminals like Brennan and Clapper and Obama could take a parallel platform and flip it to domestic surveillance, something that the CIA is not chartered to do, into domestic surveillance and monitor emails, phone calls, internet activities, financial transactions, garner information that could be used as leverage, blackmail, coercion. But on these parallel platforms, there's no internal reporting system, so they could do that and get away with it, and they couldn't be caught. While on the NSA platform, there was a built-in log system. And how did Bill and Kirk know that? Because they devised it. There's a built-in log system that even if they tried to abuse the form structure, they still could be caught because of the log system internally built within the NSA system. But on these other platforms, run by CIA, run by FBI, run by the Defense Department, there's no reporting system. And in particular, they talk about, and something they've talked about before, on this YouTube channel, if you look at the very top of the page, there's an interview I did on June 6th with Bill and Kirk about parallel platforms. But in particular, in this interview as well, and on that interview, they talk about a particular subsection of a parallel platform, because there are a number of them. There's not just one, there are many, which is scary. But one in which there's called the Hammer. And the guy who developed that was by the name of Dennis Montgomery, who initially, when he developed it, it was used to surveil foreign terrorists. But what happened is criminals, and let's be honest, they're criminals. Brennan and Clapper, the then director of the CIA under Obama, and Clapper, then director of national intelligence under Obama, took that platform and flipped it from looking internationally into looking domestically. And then they privatized it as their own little baby, that they could spy on you name it, and then get that information and use it to further the deep state agenda and their own personal agenda and agendas. That's key. The destruction of every American's Fourth Amendment rights were at the hands of government criminals like Brennan and Clapper, who took something that was devised to be used as a looking glass internationally, and a microscope actually internationally, to gain information to protect American citizens. They took it to be their own and used it illegally on the American public. It's really key to this whole mess, to the whole Russian hoax, to the whole Ukraine hoax. The same players are involved in all of this. But then Kirk and Bill discuss election fraud and how these systems can be used to throw an election. And that's where the real concern is for 2020. This is information you'll never get from the bought-off lamestream fake media. And understand the people who are telling you this information. You don't have to believe me, but you should believe Bill and Kirk, because they are true experts. They developed these platforms. They invented them. They managed them. They implemented them. They are true experts. the problem we have is that there are people that put themselves out as experts and say, oh, don't pay any attention to any of this. None of this stuff exists. This is all. They've never developed a platform, a surveillance platform. They've never managed a surveillance platform. They don't have any technical experience. Bill and Kirk are two of the highest level people in surveillance, experts in surveillance in the world. You need to listen to them because they're putting their lives on the line by telling you the truth. And the truth isn't pretty. But we have to deal with it. Because the deep state's next target is the election of 2020. At the end of the interview, they talk about what you can do to make a difference. And there is something you can do. And frankly, there's something you must do for the future of not just you, your family, your kids, your grandkids, our country, and the future of our country. Thank you for joining me today. I think you'll find this interview to be a very important one. And please remember, it's brought to you courtesy of the subscribers at davejanda.com. Without them, this YouTube channel, my radio show, the website, the free side, let alone the subscription side, none of it would exist without them. Thank you for your time today. Dream big and dare to fail. Now on to Kirk and Bill. Hi, I'm Dr. Dave Janda. Welcome back to the Insider Insight Show. I'd like to thank you for your time. I hope you will network this information that we're going to deliver in this show with two of my just best friends, two people who have given so much to this country and for your freedoms and your liberties, Bill Binney and Kirk Wiebe, two legends in the surveillance world. A little background on both. Bill Binney is a former highly placed intelligence official with the United States National Security Agency turned whistleblower who resigned on October 31st, 2001 after more than 30 years with the agency. Bill was a high-profile critic of his former employers during the George W. Bush administration, but it didn't start and stop there. Bill continued to speak out during Barack Obama's presidency about the NSA's data collection policies. Bill was a Russian specialist and worked in the operations sides of intelligence, starting as an analyst and ending as a technical director prior to becoming a geopolitical world technical director. In the 90s, Bill co-founded a unit automating signals intelligence with NSA research chief Dr. John Taggart. Bill's NSA career culminated as technical leader for intelligence in 2001. Bill has been described as one of the best analysts in NSA's history. Now on to Kirk Wiebe. Kirk is a retired National Security Agency whistleblower who worked at the agencies for over 32 years. During his tenure there, Kirk received the Director CIA Meritorious Unit Award and the NSA's Meritorious Civilian Service Award, that agency's second highest distinction for work against foreign strategic weapons systems. Bottom line, Kirk, along with Bill Binney and Ed Loomis, retired in 2001, and since retiring, Kirk has made several key public disclosures regarding NSA's massive surveillance program subverting the U.S. Constitution. Bill and Kirk, welcome back to the Insider Insight Show and the Operation Freedom platform.
It's a pleasure, Dave. Thank you.
We have a lot to cover. I want to start out with the fake Russian collusion hoax because the two of you assembled a team, looked at the predicate for the entire Russian collusion hoax, that being the reportedly hack of the DNC servers. And in fact, this whole issue, this whole goat rodeo over the past 3 years could have been resolved if anyone in the media or anyone in Washington had listened to the two of you and what your team found on your analysis that this, in fact, was not a hack, but was, in fact, a leak. Bill, do you want to start this off with what your team found?
Sure. On the technical side, that's what we were looking at for the data published by WikiLeaks and also the data put on the web by Gooster 2.0. For WikiLeaks, the case there, we simply looked at 35,813 emails that they posted from the DNC. all of them had a property of a fat file format, which meant or implied it was downloaded to a storage device like a CD-ROM or a thumb drive and then physically transported before WikiLeaks posted it. Well, that negates any idea of a hack. And on the Guccifer 2 stuff, the 2.0 stuff, we found that this guy downloaded stuff at a rate that was too fast to go across the web. Now, we tested it to make sure that that was true and found that we could not get anything more. We got very close to 1/4 the maximum rate necessary to do the download speeds that were evident in the data they posted. So that says that's not a hack either. There was a download locally, wherever local is. We couldn't prove where that was. So, but it looked to us like also Guccifer 2 was also they put out one on the 5th of July and one on the 5th, and those two merged. If you looked only at seconds, milliseconds, and minutes, they all merged together in one continuous file with no conflict. That says that Guccifer 2.0 was playing with the data. Not only wasn't it a hack, it was a download, but he was also manipulating the data. In other words, he was a fraud from the beginning. All this was forensically provable, and yet our intelligence agency, for which we pay $100 billion and more every year, couldn't figure this out. And our little team did it, for a couple $100 of our time.
Kirk, was there anyone from the government that ever got in touch, or the intelligence agencies with you, or from the media that got in touch with you, Bill, your team, and said, okay, this whole issue of this Russian collusion predicated on this Russian hack, well, this throws a monkey wrench into that. Did anyone ever get in touch with you and say, lay this out for us like Bill just did?
Just a few. If you're talking about in terms of the mainstream media, the big media outlets, no. Absolutely no one, because it went counter to the popular narrative.
And what about in the government? Did Robert Mueller's team, this great investigatory body, get in touch with Bill or Kirk or your team and say, okay, guys, thanks for doing this. It's something we should have done, but thanks. Well, tell us, lay this all out for us. Did anybody get in touch with you from Mueller's team?
Nope.
Now, Bill, you actually met with Mike Pompeo, who was then the director of the CIA, correct?
Yes, I did, yeah.
And what happened there?
Well, he came in and said, when I first went into his office, he said the president had told him that if he wanted to know anything factual about Russiagate, that he should talk to me. Now, I thought that was a really bad omen, since all the stuff I'd worked on was open source information and could easily be deduced from that. And so it meant that his entire agency and all the other intelligence agencies were not even looking at evidence that was already posted in the open source. And so I took him through what I knew about that and just said, this is the factual evidence, and this whole thing is a farce. It's a fake. And he basically, it's a surprise to him. So, and he had a couple of people in there who technically were asking me how I figured that out, or how my group figured that out, and we did it. I went through how you could see at the timestamps at the end of every file and so on. You could calculate the rate of transfer and things of that nature. And you could look at the last time modified things of that nature. It's all very straightforward technical analysis of information, and it's all posted on the web, and you can go get it and see it. So, and I basically told him that all of his intelligence agencies are lying to him and the president, right, simply because they're not telling him the truth. I mean, why are you here asking me this? Why aren't they telling you that? And the reason is because they don't want you to know.
And what was his response to that, Bill?
He said he found it hard to believe that his hardworking people would in the CIA would do that. Hey, and listen. I said, well, you don't have to believe me. All you have to do is go read the DOD-IG report 05 Intel-Intel-03. That lays out all the lies and fraud and criminality and corruption that's involved in NSA. They've documented it. And the problem is nobody's paying attention to it. Nobody wants to face it and fix any problems. They just let these problems fester,
Hey, Bill, I think you had an effect on Pompeo, because after you had this conversation with him, he lectured at Texas A&M University. And in the question answer session, when I heard this, I immediately thought of you because I knew of your conversation with him. Here, listen, Pompeo boasted, this is at Texas A&M after you had this conversation, boasted that in the CIA, both the training and culture are geared toward the following. Quote, you ready? we lied, we cheated, we stole, end quote.
Yep.
Sounds like a song, Dave.
Yeah, bad song. That's a bad country song,
Yeah.
Kirk. That's a bad country song, Kirk and Bill. So, you know, here we go. You know, Bill, when you started breaking up, you had mentioned that you had talked to some folks at Fox and RT, right?
Right.
Yeah. And what were the ramifications of that?
Well, I mean, nothing.
So we got to Bill saying, sounds like nothing. And you would attest to that, right, Kirk? There was really nothing that came about it.
Right. Absolutely.
So let's focus on the issue of CrowdStrike, because are you back, Bill? I think we lost Bill. Oh, you there, Bill?
I'm here now. I can hear you now.
Okay, great, perfect. So I want to focus on CrowdStrike, because CrowdStrike is the common denominator with the Russian hacking scenario hoax and the Russian and the current Ukrainian hoax. CrowdStrike is a company that reportedly was brought in to look at this DNC server. Now, this was from Zero Hedge. It's been known for some time that the U.S. government based its conclusion that Russia hacked the DNC on a report by cybersecurity firm CrowdStrike, which the DNC paid over $1 million to conduct forensic analysis on servers they refused to hand over to the FBI. CrowdStrike report made its way to a joint FBI Department of Homeland Security report, and the bottom line is now, thanks to a new court filing, we find out that the U.S. government was given a redacted version of the report marked a draft. What makes the whole thing even more hokey is a footnote admitted that counsel for the DNC informed the government that they are the last version of the report produced. So to be clear, the entire narrative that Russia hacked the DNC is based on a redacted draft of a report which CrowdStrike appears not to have even finalized and were paid for by the DNC to the tune of $1 million. Bill and Kirk, this is a complete fraud.
Exactly. Exactly. It wouldn't surprise me to find out that Guccifer 2, in fact, was fantasized and implemented by CrowdStrike.
Oh.
Or the CIA.
Oh. Well, wait now, Kirk. The CIA wouldn't do something like that. Right? I mean, what did he say? Quote, we lied, we cheated, we stole. End quote. Yeah, right. They wouldn't do something like that.
Well, the only reason I suggest CIA, Dave, is we know that there was a leak or a purposeful dump of very clever IT manipulation tools from the CIA, one of which is known to be able to create signatures that point to another country or entity as the source of the nefarious activity. So if you remember, some of the evidence pointing to Russia that was cited was Cyrillic characters associated with this hack, some droppings, if you will, for those that aren't as technical. And so I say someone used that tool from the CIA to point to Russia as the guilty party, when in fact it may well have been from within the United States itself.
Now, what draws is a fair conclusion that the information that reportedly was presented to the American public and the world public about this being a hack, and this information was generated through this company CrowdStrike, is it a fair assessment to make, Bill and Kirk, that this is a fraud perpetrated on the world public?
Absolutely.
Absolutely.
We could prove that it was
Bill, you're breaking up. You're breaking up again, Bill.
I put it in a sworn affidavit in the courts for Roger Stone and also General Flynn. So, I mean, it's a forensically provable case that it was not a hack.
So now that we've identified that this has been a complete fraud as it relates to the Russian hack narrative that was the predicate for the whole Russian collusion narrative, the word CrowdStrike comes up again in the Ukraine hoax, because this whole Ukraine hoax impeachment scenario is based upon a telephone conversation of President Trump on July 25th, 2019 with the president of Ukraine. And in that phone call, he talks about corruption, and he talks about investigation into not the 2020 election coming up, but the 2016 election, and brings up the issue of CrowdStrike. And the fact that one of the principals in the CrowdStrike company has a Ukrainian basis to him, and that the server, this DNC servers, could well now be located in Ukraine. Is that a fair assessment, Kirk?
Yes, it is, Dave.
So, the Russian hoax was based on, it seems as though a common denominator, and tell me if I'm wrong, Bill and Kirk, is this CrowdStrike organization.
Yeah.
Bill, do you believe that's the case too? Oh, Bill's faded out.
Yeah, and also the server.
And the server. So, the same people that appear to be behind the fake Russian hoax narrative are the same people behind this Ukrainian hoax narrative. And it appears that the deep state has embraced as their whistleblower an individual whose anonymity, they want to keep quiet. And they want to keep under wraps. Now, Bill Binney and Kirk Wiebe are the two of the most well-known whistleblowers, not only in our country but the world. And in fact, I don't categorize this person from the Ukraine hoax issue that started talking about this call of which they weren't part of, but were second and third hand knowledge of, as being a gossip blower. This gossip blower is very different and treated very different than the way whistleblowers are treated, including you, Bill and Kirk. So educate all of us. When you came out as whistleblowers, were you treated the same way this gossip blower is being treated?
No, absolutely not. I mean, we were... first of all, our names were turned over by the DOD Inspector General as names to the FBI. They gave our names to them as people who and the spying on U.S. citizens unconstitutionally. And
Bill, you faded out there. So Kirk, you want to take it from there?
We were treated completely differently. First of all, our names, when we made the IG complaint to the DOD, Department of Defense Inspector General, our names were supposed to be kept confidential for the duration of the investigation. Mm-hmm. They weren't. The IG himself called the DOJ, Department of Justice, and gave them our names. Now, it took them a few years to raid us via the FBI when 12 agents appeared at each of our homes and took our computers and personal effects, digital devices, etc. We were never prosecuted, and we sued the government to get our equipment back, which we successfully did in 2012. But the point of it is, we were treated as the enemy. We were turned over to authorities and raided by the law enforcement arm of the federal government. And there were efforts, and still are efforts by the government, to keep us from testifying, to keep us from talking about. We have evidence, for example, when Fox News came out and did lengthy filming of us, ostensibly to support a documentary on our experience and containing the message of mass surveillance, was squashed by none other than the government. When I inquired of Catherine Herridge, a reporter with Fox, well known to many, I said, "What happened, Catherine?" She said, "I don't know. We did all this filming and suddenly the senior producers trashed it, wouldn't let it air." A few months later, we find out one of the key producers on the project was hired by the National Security Agency.
Oh, that's a pure coincidence.
Yeah.
Yeah, right.
Exactly. So no, we, at every turn, we have, people have tried to squelch us, to distort our message, etc.
And Bill, at one point, when your home was raided, didn't the FBI actually, didn't some agents put a gun to your head?
Yeah, right up front. When they came in, they were pointing guns at everybody. My family, my wife, my son. Yeah. It was all intimidation, Dave. That's all it was. They were trying to intimidate. That's when I started getting mad at them, for doing what I knew what they were doing. They were here to intimidate us. They didn't want us talking.
Meanwhile, when it comes to this gossip blower, they're protected. Their name is withheld. Their information is withheld. They want to protect them so much that they actually say, well, initially Schiff was saying, oh, we're just going to do written testimony, and now it's no, we're not even going to do any testimony. This is drastically different. So what is it, Bill? What does this tell you, Kirk? What does this tell you about this gossip blower?
It's so squishy and abstract, just the nature of it, when you look at the reporting on it and about it, that it can't be trusted, based on what it looks like. It looks like someone is manipulating stories, and it's complicit. The Democrats looking at the investigation headed by Adam Schiff. It just stinks to high heaven from every perspective, Dave.
Have either of you ever seen or heard of a true whistleblower being treated the way this gossip blower is being treated?
Yeah.
No, I haven't.
This guy, obviously, this guy has not been invested. I mean, this guy has not been investigated.
Right. And Kirk, have you?
No, never.
So what are we to conclude about this gossip blower?
He's what you just said.
Well, it's more than that, Dave. I think it's a part of a conspiracy to subvert the U.S. government. And here's why I say that. In our case, DODIG took 2.5 years, or a little over 2 years, to investigate. And this guy, nobody's been investigating any of it. And the Democrats are trying to keep it quiet so that nobody can investigate. Well, where's the investigation there, and where's the result of that investigation? We don't see that because they don't want us to.
Mm-hmm. So how do you two have been through this for decades? Where do you see this leading?
Well, I mean, it basically where it's heading fundamentally is to a point where we can no longer trust anything that our government says, and they're going to be manipulating, doing whatever they want to us, with whether or not we like it or not. Mm-hmm. So this is basically heading toward a totalitarian state, as I've said from the very beginning. You
have said that from the beginning, and you've taken a lot of heat for saying that. And Kirk, Kirk, you feel this very similar, don't you?
Yeah, the nation is totally polarized. We have people in positions of power very willing to corrupt otherwise democratic processes in which we believed and held dear are now using those processes for corruptive purposes. And so I almost think we're headed, there's no resolution to this, Dave. We have to fight this one out, and it may end up in a street fight. But by that, I mean, if people on the left continue to behave this way, we will have some aspect, some type of civil war, because we cannot exist as a constitutional republic when the very document we hold dear, the Constitution, is subverted in spirit and in letter across the board. And we have high-ranking officials on the left willing to do that.
What I also find to be a problem, Bill and Kirk, Bill has called the Department of Justice the Department of Just Us, right? Which is profound and true, because it tells it's an indication that there is a two-tiered just us system. There's just us elites, if you will, and the rest of us schmoes, right?
That's it.
Yeah. And one of the real issues here has been the lack of follow-through by the Department of Justice. When we are recording this interview, the Inspector General's report has yet to be released, and reportedly it was going to be released very soon here and now. There's reportedly another week and a half to 2 week delay. But there are some people that are fighting this legally. I think even more vociferously than the Justice Department, that should be the head of the spear here, and they're not. And that is, we have Judicial Watch with Tom Fitton doing a lot of work, and we also have Sidney Powell, who I also consider a friend, who has been doing a lot of work on behalf of General Flynn and bringing a lot of this information out.